If anyone tries to persuade you that gaming is all good or all bad, they're full of it. Like most things, gaming exists in shades of gray, and one game can't permanently tip the scales for better or worse. Like Concord's utter failure doesn't mean that you can't enjoy Shadow of the Erdtree, just like the excitement around a new top-down Zelda game doesn't mean Suicide Squad wasn't a huge bummer. These games and studios and publishers are largely unrelated to one another, and 2024 was another busy year for the industry, producing games worth playing and avoiding. Just like 2023 and just like 2025 surely will be too. All that being said, something about Astrobot does feel different. Now, I'm not here to tell you Team Asobi is saving the industry and everything is roses and sunshine, but I do believe gaming is better off now than before Astrobot existed. If you're a pessimist, you might argue Astrobot is a highly derivative platformer that stands on the shoulders of Sony corpses from Ape Escape to Bloodborne, but I'd push back here. Strip away all the Sony characters and fan service and Astrobot still works. It's still fun, and it still feels great to experience minute to minute, controller in hand. And while no 3D platformer today can replicate the leap of, let's say, Super Mario 64, I do believe Team Asobi is one of the only developers that has delivered on the promise and potential of the DualSense controller's haptic feedback, adaptive triggers, and local audio features. This is probably because Asobi's ambition was long limited to the tech demo realm. Let's face it, as charming as 2018's Rescue Mission and 2020's Playroom are, they were marketing tools, shiny objects, but the potential was always there, and it's finally been realized with Astrobot. If you're unaware, here's the deal. Astrobot currently stands at a 94 must-play on Metacritic, and early indications are that it's selling very well. I feel as a PS5 owner, as a gamer, no matter your preferences, there's really no good reason to not purchase and try this game. And the obvious hope here is that its popularity sends a loud and clear message to the Sony suits. Less live service trash, more fun. I probably have an irrational level of emotional investment in Team Asobi because the studio is really all that's left of Sony's late and great Japan studio. Suffice it to say, Japan Studio was one of the most important reasons why great games came out of Sony from about 1994 to 2020. That includes development support on Ape Escape, Eco, Shadow of the Colossus, Loco Roco, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Ghost of Tsushima, among dozens and dozens of others. Fun fact, From Software's Yasuhiro Kitao actually got his start at Japan Studio in the 2010s and helped bring Bloodborne to life before joining FromSoft full-time in 2017. For reasons the public will likely never fully understand, the Sony suits decided to shutter Japan Studio in 2021 and were told many of its employees were moved to other teams within Sony, primarily Team Asobi, Japan Studio's spiritual successor. And this does appear to be somewhat true. Lots of current Team Asobi employees and contractors were formerly at Japan Studio, like the current studio lead, animation director, and one of their game designers. Team Asobi, like Japan Studio before it, is important because it's essentially Sony's internal studio. It wasn't pulled under the Sony umbrella through M&As like Housemarque, Bluepoint, or Sucker Punch. Aspirationally, think of Team Asobi like Nintendo's famed EPD studio, the powerhouse behind an endless stream of classic games, and virtually all of Nintendo's Switch-era success stories: Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Mario Maker 2, Splatoon 3, Pikmin 4, Mario Wonder, on and on. Sure, as a corporate giant, you can go the Microsoft route, acquire Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, and pretend like you're some kind of grassroots gaming factory, but none of these studios is homegrown. Even Halo's Bungie existed independently for like 9 years prior to its acquisition. And I think this has been one of the biggest issues surrounding the Xbox brand for many, many years now. What is Xbox? Who is Xbox? 15 years ago, it was about first and third person shooters. It was about graphical fidelity and new technology. I mean, I personally feel outside of Mario for Nintendo, Master Chief is one of the strongest gaming mascots ever. But that was then, and now in 2024, Xbox feels like a chaotic cornucopia of studios being held together only by glue, duct tape, and the empty ambition of Daddy Phil, but that's just my 2 cents. I don't wish the same fate for Sony though, and Sony is different than Xbox. Its history, honestly, is much more aligned with that of Nintendo. Technological innovation, platforming mascots until, well, things got complicated. Certain studios lost their way, certain IPs were effectively killed off, and as of the last few years, Sony has felt like a little more than a Horizon, Last of Us, Spider-Man machine. Which is great if those are your favorite franchises, but what about everyone else? What about everything else? Well, enter Astrobot. This adorable little robot has reminded all of us, including the suits, what Sony once was. Crash, Spyro, Jak and Daxter, Ape Escape, Okami, Team Ico, From Software. There was a time when not every Sony game was another cutscene-driven, stealth action, third-person product. There was, without needing rose-colored glasses, a time when Sony games were all about fun and wow. Look, whether you're a PlayStation fan or not, I think you'd be lying to yourself if you believed the brand has fully lived up to its play has no limits mantra in recent years. The PS5 started strong. Astro's Playroom, the Demon's Souls remake, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, Returnal just a few months after launch. But then it didn't take long before things slowed down, before they barely even got started. And you had people asking themselves, where are the new IPs? Where's the sequels to the beloved franchises? Where's the well-deserved remakes? I mean, 4 years on, is this console even living up to its potential? Which, technologically, as the mantra goes, seems fairly limitless. And to me, it seems like only a few games have scratched that PS5 surface. But in a world of gray, there's always room to change course, to lean a little more toward the light, toward a place where all wavelengths of the visible color spectrum combined to create something special, something almost indescribable. But again, it takes a lot of different colors to get there. I honestly believe Astrobot represents a fork in the road for Sony. To mix things up, to diversify their output, to realize that, yeah, while the third-person stealth action cutscene games sell pretty well and are pretty popular, plenty of other types of games sell pretty well and are pretty popular too. While they're not my jam necessarily, I don't have a problem if Sony continues to pump out Horizon and Marvel games, as long as they pump out alternatives too. More Returnals, more Astrobots. Here's a fun fact. Asobi is the Japanese word for play. So in other words, the studio name is Team Play. They're built to live up to the Sony brand mantra. And I'd even go so far as to suggest, while Astro is already the Team Asobi mascot, why not just embrace him as the new Sony mascot? When is there ever going to be a better time and opportunity? When has a single video game character ever been more ready for the mascot spotlight than Astrobot in 2024? I'll leave you with this quote from Team Asobi studio lead Nicolas Doucet when he was recently asked about Astrobot's potential and what kind of role the little guy could play in Sony's future. Quote, I came to realize something in recent weeks, especially when this question around mascots came up. This is not me playing humble, but I was thinking about Mickey Mouse. I was thinking about the Marios and the Sonics, and I think a mascot is something you don't decide up front. This is something that grows on people, and at some point, you turn around and realize that that character has always been there in the good moments. It has to be up to the people to decide when they see Astro as their mascot rather than for us to force it, which is why I'm holding back on using that word. However, raising Astro as one of the strong PlayStation characters next to the amazing IPs that we have, yes, that's definitely our goal. That's our ambition. If we do that, we're representing generations, and that would obviously be fantastic, but it's for the people to decide. End quote. So I've been having a blast with Astro Bot. I'm chipping away at the Platinum Trophy. It's just a joy to play for somebody who grew up playing Super Mario 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, Crash, Banjo-Kazooie. But again, it's not just a nostalgia game. It stands on its own. It pays tribute to the past, yes, but it has its own legs to stand on. And it just feels so damn good to play, controller in hand, so smooth, so fluid. I love Astro's movement. Again, just having a blast. So tell me what your experiences have been with this game, if you've played it, if you've finished it. And do you share my feelings? Do you also believe that this new IP represents a fork in the road for Sony? That this could be a moment where things get better, things become a little more diverse, a little more interesting. So I look forward to hearing what you think down in the comments below. Be sure to check out links to my Patreon page and Discord server down in the description below. I appreciate you watching, and I will catch you next time.